What happens when a CEO walks into one of his own stores and realizes the people running it have no idea who he is or what they're getting away with? Preston Kane had built the business from the ground up after buying the 5-location burger chain from an old college friend nearly 7 years ago. He turned it around, brought in better quality ingredients, improved training, and focused hard on building a real team culture. But lately, something wasn't right. Customer complaints from one location had tripled in 6 months. Turnover was high. The store was still making money, but margins were tightening oddly. The district manager, Andrew, kept brushing it off. It's just staffing issues. Every place is short right now, he'd said during a call last week. But Preston didn't like vague answers. So he made a choice. He'd go undercover. Not as a customer, but as a new hire. A trainee. He'd done it once, back when he'd first bought the company. But that was years ago. No one at this location had ever met him personally. It was a corporate chain now, with layers of management most of the staff had never seen past the store manager. He had a solid disguise, dyed his hair a bit darker, grew in a beard, wore thick glasses, and went by Paul. He even gave himself a fake resume, saying he'd moved from out of state looking for part-time work. The district manager helped arrange the onboarding, unaware who he really was. And on Monday morning, Preston Paul showed up for his first shift. The store was in a strip mall just off the highway. It looked clean enough from the front, but when he stepped through the back door, the tension was thick. Willow Everett, a sharp-eyed cashier with a tired smile, gave him a nod. "You the new guy?" "Yeah, Paul." She didn't ask questions, just handed him a hairnet and pointed toward a tall woman barking orders near the fryer. "That's Gwen, shift manager. Just don't take it personal." Gwen didn't waste time. "You're late," she snapped, even though he was 5 minutes early. "You're prepping fry baskets. Gloves? Now." Preston nodded wordlessly and got to work. The kitchen was disorganized. Orders piled up fast, and people moved around each other like they were dodging landmines. No one smiled. No one joked. It felt cold. A kid on the grill, barely 19, flipped patties with speed but no energy. Preston caught his name from his tag, Diego. "Hey," Preston said during a quick lull. "How long you been working here?" 3 months, Diego muttered. "You like it?" Diego shrugged. "I mean, it's a job." Willow slid by with a tray of drinks. "He likes food and rent, so yeah, he's stuck." Gwen overheard and narrowed her eyes. "Willow, stop chatting and get those out. Paul, you mess up the fry times and you're covering the cost." Preston blinked. "Wait, what?" "You heard me. That wasn't in any training manual. And certainly not in any policy he'd signed off on." Preston kept his head down and watched. Gwen barked at everyone. She called the dishwasher slow as molasses, snapped at Willow for not smiling enough, and didn't lift a finger to help when the lunch rush slammed the kitchen. After the shift, Preston sat outside with Willow and Diego. They shared a soda and leaned against the back wall. "You guys always this busy?" "It's like this every day," Willow said. "We're short 2 people, but Gwen won't let anyone pick up overtime. Says it messes with the books. She also cuts hours last minute," Diego added. "I was supposed to work 35 this week. Got dropped to 22. Still get paid the same hourly?" Diego shook his head. "No. She reclassifies us as trainee if we don't hit enough hours. Pays less." Preston clenched his jaw. That wasn't just unethical. That was illegal. And no one's reported this? Willow laughed bitterly. "To who? District manager? That guy's Gwen's cousin or something." Preston felt a wave of heat creep up his neck. He took a breath. "Listen. If you could change one thing about this place, what would it be?" Willow didn't hesitate. "Respect. Not just more money, though that'd help. Just not being treated like trash." Preston nodded slowly. "Thanks for talking to me." As he walked to his car, peeling off his apron, he knew already this wasn't going to be just another secret visit. Something had gone deeply wrong here, and someone was going to have to answer for it. Preston showed up for his second shift in the early afternoon. The air inside the kitchen was thick and hot, the type of heat that clung to your skin. He clocked in and grabbed a towel from the prep counter, already damp from the morning crew. Gwen didn't say a word to him this time, just pointed to the grill. "You're on patties. Don't burn anything." She turned her attention to a delivery driver who'd walked in through the back. "Leave it by the freezer. I don't have time to count it now." The driver hesitated. "I need a signature." Gwen rolled her eyes and grabbed the clipboard. "Fine. But if something's missing, I'm charging it back to you." The man's face tightened, but he didn't reply. He dropped the boxes near the freezer and left without a word. Preston worked the grill as best he could, but the spatula was bent and the surface hadn't been scraped down properly from the morning shift. He adjusted the heat and used the edge of the tool to chip off some of the hardened residue. No one else seemed to notice or care. After 20 minutes, Willow walked in from the front counter and leaned against the prep sink, rubbing her wrist. "You all right?" Preston asked. "Yeah. Just cramped from pouring drinks all shift. The soda nozzle pressure's messed up again. So I'm basically gripping it like a wrench every time." He looked toward the drink station. The tubing was loosely taped to the wall, and the valve near the base was leaking onto the floor. "You told anyone?" Gwen said it's not her problem. Said it's a maintenance thing. And if corporate doesn't approve the repair budget, there's nothing she can do. Preston wiped sweat from his forehead. "It's a safety hazard. Someone's going to slip. She knows. She told me to mop it every hour." Mid-shift, a man in his 40s walked in through the back, carrying a clipboard and talking into a headset. His name tag read Andrew, District Manager. Gwen greeted him instantly. "Glad you could finally show up." Andrew chuckled and leaned against the counter. "Had a meeting with the regional director. What's the damage here?" Preston kept his head down, flipping burger patties, but he listened. "Same as last week," Gwen said. "We need 2 more bodies, but I'm making it work." "Just barely." Andrew looked around. "These kids keeping up?" "They're trying. Paul's new. Not the fastest, but I'll whip him into shape." Andrew glanced toward Preston and gave a short nod. "Don't give Gwen a hard time. She runs this place better than anyone else I've got." Preston didn't respond. He just turned back to the grill. Later, on his 15-minute break, he sat outside on the concrete steps in the alley behind the store. Diego joined him, holding a sandwich wrapped in napkins. "You ever think of just quitting?" Preston asked. "All the time," Diego said through a mouthful of bread. "But I can't. My mom's disability check barely covers rent. I've got to help." "Ever ask for a raise?" Diego laughed once. "I did. Gwen said I wasn't consistent enough. That was the week I covered for 2 no-shows and stayed an hour late every day." Preston leaned back against the wall, staring at the sky. "You guys ever see the owner? Like the actual owner?" "Nope. Just Andrew sometimes. He says the owner's some big shot in a suit who doesn't even live in state." Preston gave a slow nod. "Figures." Back inside, the dinner crowd started rolling in early. A family with 3 kids was already waiting at the counter before anyone had time to switch over the registers. Willow was back at the front, trying to ring up orders while also prepping milkshakes. The machine was sputtering. "It's clogged again," she shouted toward the kitchen. Gwen didn't even look up. "Then don't offer shakes." A few customers overheard. "What kind of place runs out of milkshakes at 5 p.m.? One of them muttered. Willow apologized, but the woman shook her head and walked out, kids in tow. That was the 5th customer lost in 10 minutes. Preston stepped away from the grill and peered toward the front. "Want me to take register?" Gwen snapped her fingers. "No, you're not trained for that. Stay on grill or I'm writing you up." He looked at Willow, who was visibly overwhelmed, hands shaking slightly as she tried to manage both cash and cleanup. She didn't ask for help. She didn't even glance at him. She was used to this. By 8 p.m., the place was falling apart. A couple in their 60s waited over 20 minutes for 2 burgers and fries. When they finally got their food, the fries were cold. The man brought the tray back to Gwen. "These are stone cold." Gwen didn't flinch. "That's what happens when you don't eat them right away." The woman blinked. "We just got them." "Okay, fine. I'll replace them. But next time, maybe don't wait so long." Preston stepped away from the grill and walked over. "I can redo those fries." Won't take more than 2 minutes. The couple looked at him, surprised. Thank you, the woman said, nodding. Gwen held up a hand. No. I'm doing it. Paul, back to your station. Preston didn't move. I said now. He turned back silently and finished the rest of the shift without another word. At closing, the crew was down to 4. The floor was sticky. The mop bucket smelled like sour milk. Gwen sat in the office, scrolling on her phone. Willow was wiping down tables. Diego was cleaning the fryer. Preston picked up the broom and started sweeping near the back. You guys always close like this? He asked Willow. Unless Gwen decides to leave early. Then we do it with 3. Is that allowed? Doesn't matter. No one checks. Preston went quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Willow paused, rag in hand. Yeah? Why stay here? She looked down at the table she was scrubbing, then back at him. Because I can't afford to start over somewhere else. And because Diego's here. If I left, he'd be stuck with Gwen alone. Preston didn't say anything. He just nodded and went back to sweeping. By midnight, the store was locked. Lights off. Crew gone. Preston sat in his car in the far end of the lot, engine running, window cracked. He called his assistant. I need the HR files on Gwen and Andrew. Everything. I want to see payroll logs, scheduling patterns, complaint records, and maintenance requests for the last 6 months. I want them by tomorrow morning. He hung up before she could ask questions. In the darkness, Preston stared at the darkened storefront. This wasn't just a bad manager. This was a system built to keep people quiet. And it was about to come down. Preston arrived early. Not to clock in, but to watch. From his car, parked just far enough to avoid suspicion, he had a clear line of sight to the store's back entrance. By 6:45, Gwen pulled up in her usual red SUV. She parked in the fire lane again, stepped out, and lit a cigarette before walking in. No one else had arrived yet. He waited. At 7 o'clock sharp, Willow showed up on foot. She was wearing a hoodie with the store's logo and carrying an old thermos. She knocked once at the back door. Gwen opened it a crack, said something, then shut it again. Willow stood there another minute before the door opened fully. Preston stepped out of his car. He didn't go inside yet. Not this time. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed from a private line routed through corporate one Gwen wouldn't recognize. When the call connected, Gwen answered with a clipped, "Yeah, this is Preston Kane," he said plainly. "I need you to gather your team. Now, I'm 10 feet from your back door." There was a pause. No response. Then the line went dead. He walked toward the building. Gwen opened the door before he could knock. Her face drained of color, grip tightening around the doorframe. "Gwen," he said, stepping past her without waiting. "Call Diego. Anyone else scheduled. Tell them to come in. I want every employee who's worked here in the last 2 weeks notified. I'll wait." She opened her mouth, but he cut her off. "No excuses. You've got 10 minutes. Willow was standing by the prep sink, frozen in place. Her eyes flicked between them, confused. Preston turned to her. "My name's Preston Kane. I own this company." Willow blinked, thermos still in her hand. "You what?" "I've been working here undercover. As Paul." She set the thermos down slowly, not quite believing it. "I'll explain everything. But first I need your help. Please text anyone else you trust who's worked here. Tell them to come. They won't be penalized. I promise." She nodded once and reached for her phone. Gwen hadn't moved. Preston looked at her. "I suggest you use that office phone and do the same. Unless you'd rather sit this out." She turned silently and disappeared into the back. By 7:25, the kitchen had filled with tension and footsteps. Diego walked in, shoulders stiff, followed by 2 other employees Preston hadn't met: Samira, a night shift closer, and Marcus, who looked barely out of high school. All of them looked uncertain, like they expected to be reprimanded. They weren't. Not today. Preston stood near the center of the kitchen, arms crossed. Gwen lingered by the office door, arms folded tightly. "We're closing the store today," he said. "Just for today. You'll all be paid for your scheduled hours." I've seen enough. No one spoke. He turned to Gwen. I'll start with you. She straightened. I didn't know who you were. If I had, that's the problem, he interrupted. You treat people based on what you think they're worth. Based on whether they can push back. She opened her mouth again, but he didn't stop. I've reviewed every scheduling change you've made. You've been deliberately misclassifying hours to lower wages. You've denied overtime while running understaffed shifts. You've used intimidation to keep people from reporting it. And you've created a work environment where fear is normal. Gwen's hand twitched slightly at her side. There's no coming back from that, Preston said. You're terminated, effective immediately. You can't, I can. And I just did. Do not speak to any staff on your way out. HR will contact you this afternoon regarding your final paycheck and legal obligations. He gestured to the door. For a second, she didn't move. Then she turned, walked past the prep station, and exited through the back. Silence followed. Preston turned to the crew. I owe you all an apology. This store has been operating far below the standards I built this company on. That's my fault. I stopped paying attention. No one said anything at first. Then Samira spoke up. We thought that was just how it worked. You show up, keep your head down, and hope you don't get yelled at. Preston nodded. It's not supposed to work that way. And it won't moving forward. He looked at Diego. You stayed calm when things were chaotic. You worked hard. You deserve better. Diego shifted awkwardly. I just didn't want to get fired. I know, Preston said. And that's why I'm offering you a paid transfer to one of our top-performing stores. You'll get full-time hours, proper title, and someone to actually train you. If you want it. Diego nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. He turned to Willow. You kept this place afloat. You protected your team. That's what real leadership looks like. She looked down. I didn't do anything special. You did everything that mattered, he said. I'd like you to step into an assistant manager role. Not here. At a new location, under a new GM. Full salary. Full benefits. But only if you want it. Her eyes widened. I don't even know what to say. Just say yes if it feels right, Preston replied. She nodded, still stunned. He looked at the remaining team. Everyone here who's scheduled to work today is still getting paid for their time. You're free to go home. Tomorrow we'll reopen with a temporary leadership team while we rebuild this store properly. There will be no retaliation. If anyone contacts you trying to intimidate or discredit your statements, let me know. Immediately. Samira raised her hand slightly. What about Andrew? He's the one who backed Gwen. If she's gone, but he's still above every store manager. He's not, Preston said calmly. Not anymore. He pulled out his phone and made one call. Put me through to HR. A pause. Effective immediately, Andrew is relieved of duty pending formal investigation. Locke has access to scheduling, payroll, and internal systems. We'll handle the exit process in person. Today. He ended the call and slid the phone back into his jacket. I'll be staying in town for the next week. I'm placing one of our senior operations managers here starting tomorrow. Every employee will have access to direct reporting channels. No filters. Marcus leaned forward slightly. So, we're not getting shut down. No, you're getting rebuilt. The right way. As the crew trickled out, Preston stayed behind. He walked the floor slowly, looking at everything with new eyes. The cracked tile near the fryer, the electrical tape holding the soda line, the burnout baked into every surface. He called facilities. I want a full equipment audit and safety inspection by tomorrow. If something's broken, we replace it. End of story. He paused by the front counter, looking through the glass at the parking lot. A few cars pulled in, then backed out when they saw the sign taped to the door, closed today for internal review. Willow walked up beside him quietly. Can I ask something? Of course. Why now? Why come here yourself? He didn't answer right away. Because I forgot what it felt like to stand here, he said finally. To see what people deal with when no one's watching. I stopped listening. That ends today. She nodded, then paused. You think this'll actually change anything? He looked at her. It already has. Preston returned the next morning unannounced, this time dressed as himself. No disguise, no apron, just a fitted navy blazer, jeans, and the expression of a man who had seen enough behind the curtain. He stepped through the front door just before opening, greeted by the low hum of drills and the faint scent of cleaning agents. 2 maintenance contractors were adjusting the soda line, and the broken tile by the fryer had already been chipped out for replacement. Behind the counter, Willow stood reviewing a clipboard with a woman in her early 50s, Carmen, the interim GM flown in overnight from the flagship location. Carmen was seasoned, precise, and picked by Preston himself not just for her competence, but because she had no tolerance for shortcuts or excuses. Willow glanced up and gave a polite nod. "Morning." "Morning," Preston replied. "How's it going so far?" "We've been here since 6. Carmen's walking me through the opening checklist. It's different." Carmen handed the clipboard to Willow and turned to Preston. "The backline's a mess. We're replacing the heat lamps next. I've got 2 more techs coming to fix the milkshake machine and recalibrate the fryer timers." Preston looked past her at the prep area, where Diego was slicing onions with a steady rhythm. He wore a fresh uniform, his name now stitched properly on the chest. He caught Preston's gaze and gave a short nod. "Anything else stand out?" Preston asked Carmen. "There's a stack of unsigned incident reports in the office, all dated within the last 2 months. No follow-up recorded. I've already pulled them for HR." He exhaled slowly. "Good. Keep documenting everything." Marcus entered through the front just then, holding a tray of pastries. He approached Willow. "They had those cinnamon rolls you like. Figured everyone could use something this morning." Willow blinked, surprised. "You didn't have to do that." Marcus shrugged. "Felt like the right kind of day." Preston watched the exchange, then stepped aside as Carmen gathered the team near the prep line. The store hadn't opened yet, but the crew stood shoulder to shoulder, listening. "Starting today," Carmen said clearly, "you're working under full compliance. Breaks are scheduled and tracked. Overtime is approved properly. No one changes your classification without written notice and documented cause. If you ever feel otherwise, you come to me directly." She looked at each of them before continuing. "We're not fixing this overnight. It's going to take weeks to rebuild trust, retrain staff, and stabilize scheduling. But this is your reset. You've earned it." Preston stepped forward. "I want to say something brief," he said. "Not as your CEO, but as someone who stood next to you on the line last week." He folded his arms, voice steady. "I won't pretend an apology undoes what you've dealt with, but I can guarantee there will be no more silence. Problems will be addressed, and those who abuse their power won't be protected." He let that settle before turning toward Diego. "Come with me." Diego followed him into the office. Preston shut the door behind them. "You said you wanted to help your family. That hasn't changed. But I have something more in mind." Diego frowned slightly. "More? I've got a pilot program starting next quarter," Preston said. "It's a mentorship track for shift leads who show potential but haven't had access to formal development. You'd be the first. Paid training. Weekly check-ins with a corporate liaison. And if you complete it, you'll have a shot at a salary position." Diego hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "I didn't ask if you were ready," Preston said. "I asked if you want to grow." The silence hung between them before Diego finally nodded. "Yeah, I do. Then you've got my full backing. Carmen will coordinate with you." As they left the office, Preston's assistant entered through the front, holding a brown envelope. "Legal's completed the investigation on Andrew," she said quietly. "Payroll manipulation. Nepotism on record. False reporting. He's being referred to outside counsel." Preston took the envelope and nodded once. "Make sure all impacted employees are reimbursed. Retroactive pay. Full backdate." She stepped out just as Willow approached. "There's someone here asking to speak with you," she said carefully. "From another store. Says he used to work under Gwen. Looks worried." Preston followed her outside, where a young man in his 20s stood by the bike rack, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "I'm Eli. I worked at the Northside location last year. Heard what happened here. I thought I was the only one who went through that." Preston studied him for a moment. "You're not. And you're not alone anymore. Eli's shoulders dropped slightly. I didn't file anything. I just quit. Felt like no one would believe me. I believe you now, Preston said. If you're willing, we can document your experience. And if you're looking for work, I've got openings. Eli looked stunned. Seriously? You already know what to look out for. That's more valuable to me than any resume. Willow reappeared at the door. We're ready to open. Preston turned back to Eli. Think about it. No pressure. Just come inside when you're ready. Inside, the lights were bright, music playing low over the speakers. The first customer walked in, a woman with a stroller and a service dog. Willow greeted her with a calm, clear tone and a genuine smile. Welcome. We're glad you're here. No fuss. No tension. Just service. Carmen stepped behind the counter, glancing once toward the kitchen before calling out, orders up in 4 minutes, team. Let's keep it tight. Preston stayed near the front, watching it all. Later that afternoon, he sat beneath the patio umbrella outside with a simple notepad. No laptop. No phone. Just notes on what needed to stick. He wrote, no more unchecked autonomy reward initiative early, not after burnout audit systems quarterly, no delegation field visits every 60 days. Then he paused and added, listen without filters. The door opened again. Eli stepped inside, this time with his shoulders straight. Preston looked up from the pad, nodded once, and stood. The store wasn't perfect yet. It was still short-staffed. The fryer still sputtered occasionally. But it was honest again. And for the first time in a long time, it was being built on something solid. Not fear. Not silence. But accountability. And the people who showed up. Every shift. Every day. Whether anyone noticed or not. They finally had someone in their corner. For good.